Transformers: Rise of the Beasts, a movie I've been following closely in production and honestly thought was going to be a flop. And thankfully, it wasn't, even though it had to limp and crawl to the finish line to break even. But barely financial success aside, the real question is the movie actually good though? And after watching it twice in theaters, I can safely say that Transformers: Rise of the Beasts is definitely one of the movies of all time. Cause, as a major meat writer of this franchise, I like the movie, but have been taking copious amounts of copium to try and love this movie. But the thing is, I just can't. The movie as a whole was alright, as there were aspects of the movie I didn't like, I loved, and other parts that really could have been done a lot better. The plot of this one pretty much consists of the Autobots teaming up with humans to retrieve a MacGuffin before the bad guys in order to prevent the arrival of this movie's villain, Unicron. Which is cool, yet weird to see Unicron so soon in the second movie of this rebooted universe. But anyways, aside of sharing the same narrative structure as almost all of the Bayverse, Rise of the Beast does manage to spice it up a bit with the inclusion of two new humans. Noah Diaz, a tech genius struggling to get a job in order to pay for his little brother's medical treatment, played by Anthony Ramos, and Elena Wallace, a researcher who works in a museum with a bitch of a boss who takes her credit, played by Dominic Fishback. And I think they both did a pretty good job, but I feel like the movie should have focused to develop Noah's character more, because I think Elena could have been a decent character, but the movie just turns her into a plot device to handle obstacles in the plot without really building her character. Meanwhile, I especially liked Anthony's relationships with his brother and Mirage, who takes the spotlight from Bumblebee this time around, which felt ballsy but really worked as Pete Davidson gave a pretty solid performance of a cocky yet lovable douche of a character. As for the other Autobots, Peter Cullen was awesome as always, especially loved the arc he went through in this movie, as it showed a real different Optimus driven by guilt and anger for leading his team to be stranded on Earth and abandoning Cybertron, reminiscent of the old Marvel comics. But my only gripe with his arc was just how much it was mentioned by the other characters, which kind of took away from the arc, which I think was done pretty well considering it was showcased in every single scene he was in. Meanwhile, the other Autobots are just kind of there, is all I can really say. That and their voice actors did a pretty good job, and the designs look cool, I guess. Even Wheeljack's design is starting to grow on me, despite still looking goofy as hell. As for the Maximals, Ron Perlman really killed it as Optimus Primal, which I was kind of worried about. If you remember that one Machinima Power the Prime series, where he sounded soulless. But I guess it's just a matter of the performance matching the paycheck, as he gave a stoic yet humble performance, and I especially really like the interactions between him and Optimus Prime, because Primal is kind of shocked to meet him at first, because he's not really acting as the legend he's heard of, but considering Prime is at his absolute lowest, for stranding them on Earth, abandoning Cybertron, and oh yeah, Bumblebee was just killed a couple minutes ago, adding to his guilt trip. So it all just kind of forces Optimus Primal to be the more rational, level-headed between the two. The only other Maximal with an actual role in the plot was Airazor, played by Michelle Yeoh, which I kinda liked, except for some scenes which really made me wonder, couldn't they just have kept her in the studio for like one more take? Otherwise, Airazor was cool. It's just kind of a shame that she's not really gonna appear in any other sequels. Anyways, Rhinox and Cheetor don't do shit, aside from standing around and looking cool and participating in the final battle. Okay, maybe Cheetor does get like a line or two, but that is it. And the biggest letdown to me has to be Scourge, Nightbird, and Battletrap, as I was really hyped to see the latest heralds of Unicron. But like almost every other character in this movie, they were just kinda there. And Scourge, while being set up as the guy who could take on Optimus Prime and fold his ass, ended up kinda getting sidelined by his little frenzy-looking drones who sucked ass, because they couldn't even kill humans armed with pipes. And the worst part was just how generic Scourge felt as a villain, with his whole motive being the retrieval of the MacGuffin, and that was it. As I was kinda hoping for something more, something to be able to top some of my favorite villains of these movies, like Sentinel Prime, Muscle Mommy, Dropkick, which I might do a video about, so subscribe for that, I guess. Anyways, he couldn't even top them, which might have been too high a bar to pass, but still sucked. Because not only did he have a sick-ass design that looked like MF Doom, but he was voiced by Peter Dinklage, who did a great job, even if he did say some pretty generic dialogue. Okay, a big problem, if you haven't noticed, was the enormous cast of characters, some of which expectedly got sacrificed for the story, and other characters who straight up just got done dirty. Like Scourge, the Mommy Motorcycle, the other Autobots, Terracons, and Maximals. But none got done dirtier than Transit, who would have had the best fight scene in the whole movie but got cut completely. All because they wanted to have the Maximals leaving their planet opening, which was stupid, because they totally could have had both. And it honestly would have helped drive home the fact that Scourge was a genuine threat by having Optimus Prime wipe the floor with Transit and struggle with Scourge. But no, they had to cut the Transit scene. RIP Transit. But now, we reach my biggest gripe with the movie. And no, it wasn't the corny dialogue, which was occasional, but some of it was corny. But the action. Because maybe I have severe brain rot from constant overstimulation from social media, or maybe from having grown up with the Bayverse, but the action in Rise of the Beast was ass. Aside of the goated yet cut Transit scene, I'm mainly talking about the choreography, because it felt boring, because the characters would kind of do a little of a pattern as they would give 2 punches, take 2 punches, and at a point where it started to get good, the fight was over. And I know it wasn't a matter of having more explosions, because I enjoyed the fight scenes in Bumblebee, but here, something was just missing. Because complain about Bayverse designs and story all you want, but Bay knew how to make these big gay robots look larger than life. But here in Rise of the Beasts, from the action shots to the scenes of them just transforming, it all just kind of looks kind of boring. And that's kind of how you can sum up this movie. Kinda boring. Both from a visual and narrative standpoint, because while the movie pays tribute to so many aspects of this franchise, from Beast Wars, the '86 movie, the Marvel Comics, IDW Comics, Robots in Disguise, the old cartoon, to even Bayformers, which was really awesome to see, but instead of using those ideas to create something new, it played it rather safe by delivering something we'd recognize with no new spice, and done somewhat poorly. And I hate to say all of this because of how much I want to love this movie, but at the end of the day, I can only say I liked this movie. Because there were parts of this movie which had the tism in my soul barking and hollering with joy. Like the end scene where Optimus Prime destroys the transwarp key, causing Unicron and himself to get sucked up. But out of nowhere comes Noah and Optimus Prime to save him and say, "Till all are one," and return home. Meanwhile, in the background, Arrival to Earth is playing. Come on, how can you not love that? It's one of those many scenes in this movie made for the fans, but as a whole, those scenes sadly just can't carry the entire movie. Hopefully, for the sequel, they can recognize most of these mistakes and improve, because Bumblebee felt like a step in the right direction. Meanwhile, this kind of felt like a half step backwards. In the end, I give the movie a 6 out of 10, because despite the flaws, it's still a fun movie that I can recommend to any longtime fans as well as newcomers of the franchise, because it feels like a gateway for those kind of people. But lastly, taking into consideration the lack of Linkin Park,
0 out of 10.